Thank you very much for joining us today. 77, 78, 80, 81 people. Numbers keep going up. So thank you for your great interest. More than 160 people have registered to watch the first edition of the HbbTV webinar series in 2020, 22 actually we are, and we've got a great topic for you, the developments in the UK market, in HbbTV related, of course, and we've got 3 great speakers for you, and I'd like to introduce them in a moment. First of all, as usual, I'd like to give you the following information. The presentations represent the views of the presenters and the companies he represents. They represent not necessarily the views of the HbbTV Association. So that was the formal bit. Now I'd like to welcome today's speakers. We have James Jackson, Technology Director of Freeview, of course operated by Digital UK. We have Richard Moreton, working in the Business Development and Industrial Affairs Department at Samsung Electronics R&D Institute in the UK. And speaker number 3 is Sylvain Thevenot, Managing Director of Netgem in the UK and CCO and CMO of Netgem Group. And as usual, you are of course welcome to submit your questions to our speakers through the chat box. And so please, if you have anything that's on your mind that you'd like to know regarding the companies, their services, products, or the information they've given you in their presentations, please let us know during the presentations. We're collecting them all in the background, and in the last 15 minutes, as usual, we have the live Q&A session with all your questions. So thanks again for joining us, and I'd like to hand over now to James for the first presentation. Okay, we can see the presentation, just needs to go in presentation mode, and then we're all ready.
Oh, I can now see the presentation as well. Apologies for the delay. So I'll move on. So I'm going to talk to you about the UK's HbbTV platform, Freeview Play. And for those who may not know, you can still see me, can you? I've lost the vision of it.
I can hear you.
We can hear you. The presentation is somehow zoomed in.
Still cropped here.
Yeah, maybe you just need to put it in presentation mode again. Just set it back, and now
it's perfect now.
Yeah, I can't see it.
No, it's not in presentation mode yet. Try that again. No.
Can you see it now?
It's
still cropped. It was
yeah. It's not in the right mode. It's somehow there's bits missing.
I think it's playing between your 2 screens.
Now we can see it in small, and with the next slide already.
So yeah, I know what you mean.
Or you might want to keep it.
Not quite the right mode, but better than before.
You want to keep it like that? And
yeah, it'd be fine. Like, I think we can see.
No. Try F5 maybe.
I don't quite understand what it's doing.
Yeah, no, it's better like this, James.
Yeah, if I go,
leave it like that. Otherwise,
possible. Yeah, I'll speak like that. I do apologise. So continuing on, to say who Freeview Play is. Freeview Play is brought to you by Digital UK and Freeview. Digital UK operates the DTT broadcast infrastructure in the UK, and indeed for the last 6 months, it now also operates the FreeSat satellite platform in the UK. But that's a relatively new change, and we're yet to sort of complete that integration. But Digital UK is owned now by the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Channel 5, who are all of the sort of largest public service broadcasters in the UK. Beyond that, we work very, very closely and indeed share offices with Freeview, who are the marketing and the consumer-facing side that reaches out to audiences. And in addition to working with the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, they also have Sky as a member, and Sky is, of course, the largest commercial broadcaster in the UK. And Freeview Play as a sort of package of services. It's not just the public service broadcasters, it's a range of commercial broadcasters that operate services in the UK. At the core of the HbbTV Freeview Play proposition is the broadcast, linear channel viewing. But the key sort of additional component to that then is the catch-up and on-demand services, which are delivered via HbbTV, free to all owners of Freeview Play televisions and set-top boxes. But we recognise that those TVs and set-top boxes do more than just provide access to the broadcast and free-to-view services. There are also pay UK services such as ITV Hub or Now TV, and then there are global services, and we know those are very popular, and the vast majority of our devices we work with provide access to some or all of those global SVOD services. To give you some idea of scale, we're the largest connected TV platform in the UK now. We're probably at the point of these figures maybe a month or so out of date, but around about 15 million devices have been sold that incorporate Freeview Play, and that over any 1 month, probably around 10 million of those devices are active and using one or more HbbTV provided service. And one of the key parts of the proposition is there is so much free to view content. There's now over 40,000 hours of free to view on-demand content available, which is either funded by the BBC licence fee or funded by advertising, which sits around that content. And at this moment in time, we have something like 10 different content provider applications using HbbTV on the platform, although there's some other HbbTV apps as well that I can't cover all of them here. Talking then in terms of how we deliver that, we obviously have to work with a lot of manufacturer partners. And as of today, we really work with every major TV manufacturer in the UK, with the one exception of Samsung. I would be very, very happy to talk to Samsung further about one of the things we could do to extend that. We also work with all the set-top box manufacturers who are active in the UK market. Quite importantly, over recent years, has been the fact that we've ensured that Freeview Play integrates with all of the major TV operating system vendors. So Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku TV, all of which have products in the UK market, and some of those are now taking really quite significant market share. But that wouldn't be enough on its own, just working with the manufacturers. We need people to go into shops or to go online and buy Freeview Play devices. So we also work with all of the major retailers in the UK. So I think the brand names you see there at the bottom of the slide are the biggest retailers in the UK, but we will work with many others beyond them in terms of their route in terms of selling. Obviously, it's around about 6 million TVs sell in the UK each year. Around about 3.8, 3.9 million of those currently have Freeview Play in them. So we're doing very well each year. The next slide doesn't actually show you, and it might look like it's showing you a lot of HbbTV applications, but a point we were going to emphasise here is that part of what Freeview Play does differently, perhaps from some other HbbTV platforms, is it's not all about implementations which are done by us through HbbTV apps alone. We do as much as we can to try and ensure, and my image has disappeared. Can you still see it?
Yes.
Sorry. we do as much as we can to work with manufacturers by providing them with metadata and particularly images, which enables them to improve their own user interfaces so that they can encourage people to discover all of this great free-to-view content which is available on their devices. I think we've been quite successful in achieving that and building propositions which drive people both to broadcast content and to on-demand content. But of course there are HbbTV apps, and what the sort of top half of that slide, or in fact the first 9 images on that slide show, are just some of the different HbbTV apps which are provided by each of the broadcasters and content providers which operate within the platform. And each of those broadcasters creates their own HbbTV app, and we work then with testing and manufacturers to ensure that those applications will reliably work on all devices. On top of that, and what's shown at the bottom of the slide, those 3 images down at the bottom, is we do a little bit of building our own HbbTV experiences over the top of that. It's probably not today the main route to content. There's many other routes to content, both from manufacturers' native UIs and through the apps themselves, but additional routes to content are provided by some HbbTV apps we create ourselves and we supplement the service with. To give an example of one of those apps that we've recently introduced, it's what we call the Accessible TV Guide. And that app is an HbbTV app which is designed for people with either visual, seeing impairments or hearing impairments. And it does things like provide larger text and image navigation to broadcast TV content than most TV guides provide. It provides clear signposting of content which has audio description or subtitles or signing. And we've made that available to as many Freeview Play devices as possible. In fact, it's well over 95% of Freeview Play devices. And we've also used the HbbTV functionality to add text-to-speech functionality, so that even on devices which have no embedded text-to-speech functionality, we're able to read out loud to the viewer the programs which are available on TV now. If I move just to another area, it's not exclusively HbbTV that we're using, and it's worth saying a few other things about the things we do in other spaces. At the moment, the hybrid platform we've built is around DTT and broadband, but looking to the near future, we hope to extend that so that it also supports the satellite services that we now operate as part of the FreeSat platform. It's really important that the service works with any internet service provider, and we've also built versions of the experience that work on mobile and tablet devices, that work on PCs, that provide a sort of TV guide experience and then deep link to playback of content on those devices using web-based players, and all within the same sort of package. But increasingly, HbbTV provides us the sort of innovation layer on TVs. As I look to sort of get to the end of this, I thought it was helpful to say something about how the Freeview Play platform and HbbTV in general has been successful in the UK. And it is all about the partnerships that we've formed with manufacturers, broadcasters, and retailers. This is, I suppose, a very simplified diagram which attempts to show the business model of how Freeview Play is paid for and how it works and how it reaches through to consumers. So sort of our shareholders are the people who spend by far and away the largest amount of money beyond the consumers who of course buy the television sets, which isn't shown on the diagram. But there's a lot of money being spent by the UK broadcasters, both in terms of the DTT infrastructure that they operate. The transmission of that is hundreds of millions, or at least well over £100 million of DTT transmission infrastructure. There is then, of course, getting on for tens of millions of pounds being spent on things like content delivery and encoding and packaging and all of the things which are necessary to make the IP side of the service work. And then in addition to that, there is in excess of £10 million each year being spent by the broadcasters to market Freeview Play through Freeview. And it's really important the way we do that. We do that in partnership with manufacturers and retailers. We spend money to drive consumers to buy new TVs which have Freeview Play functionality in it, and then to use that functionality in TVs. It's not enough simply to just tell people that a new service exists. We work hand in hand with manufacturers and retailers to do that. I'll talk very quickly on this slide. It's really important that the sort of deals that we've done with those retailers and how we make the experience operate for them. These are two of the biggest high street retailers for televisions. If I then make my video play, which you should, I think, now see a video.
Get a load of this Hisense 4K smart TV. It comes with Freeview Play, bringing over 30,000 hours of free on-demand TV. At Currys, it starts from only $2.99, saving you up to £30.
Save? Well, nothing will save the humans.
A good one, Colin.
So that was one of the TV adverts that we ran in the run-up to Christmas last year. And I want to emphasise that whilst that was an advert for Hisense TVs, that's definitely not the only TV manufacturer we work with. We work with, in fact, most of our partners and most of the larger retailers in the UK. So that advert was Hisense with Currys, who are the largest high street retailer in the UK. But we clearly work with other partners, and there were many other versions of that advert created to drive consumers to go and buy new TVs with new functionality. On to my final slide now. I wanted to highlight one of the things that we make all that investment in Freeview Play for, and one of the parts of the partnership that I suppose we're most proud of is the way that we've been able to, I suppose, work with manufacturers and strike deals where they have seen the value in making easily available to consumers the great British UK content, which is available free on their devices by embedding Freeview Play on them. And we're very aware that in this world that we exist in, of Netflix, Amazon and Disney, all trying to do the same thing and all trying to sort of break up the consumption patterns of consumers, that it's really important to have a presence in that space and to work with manufacturers who can see the value that we're prepared to invest in driving audiences to their devices and delivering value to those consumers. So I'm conscious I probably used all of my time available. I'd like to thank HbbTV for giving me the opportunity to present, and I'm of course happy to answer any questions later on. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James, for this interesting insight into the world of Freeview and Freeview Play in the UK. I'd like to hand over now to Richard Moreton from Samsung to let us know the perspective of a retailer, of a manufacturer in this market, and of course the collaboration with the other players in the market, the retailers, the consumers, and of course the broadcasters. So over to you, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jörn. You can hear me and see my presentation. Yes. First of all, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much, James, for going first. And thanks, Jörn. So, as you said, my name is Richard Moreton. I work for Samsung Research UK. We're based near London Heathrow, and my role focuses business development and also TV standardization for our TV visual display unit. What I will do today is give a perspective from a TV manufacturer, obviously Samsung, towards HbbTV in the UK. So to do that, we'll first have a brief look at the sort of key standardization groups and our sort of support for them. And then maybe a sort of a reminder, a potted history on interactive services in the UK. And we'll have a look at the transition from MHEG to HbbTV in the UK, and why, from our view at least, that it went well, or maybe it is still going well. And we will then look at the UK market and HM, particularly the collaborative value chain, which we see so vital to that success. And finally, maybe some suggestions, message for other markets, and maybe looking to make the transition or move to HbbTV in the way that the UK did. So, Samsung is a founder member of HbbTV Association. I think it's appropriate we start with that. Obviously, as the name suggests, they provide the core HbbTV specifications. Samsung, along with many others, have been a pioneer in developing these specifications over the last years. We're elected steering board member, we chair the testing group, we co-chair the requirements group, and we're long-term active contributors in the HbbTV groups, such as the specification group. And then looking at the UK with the UK DTG, then we're also active contributor in a number of key groups supporting the development of what I think is fair to say the very widely respected UK dbook. And from that we very strongly support the nature and spirit of the dbook as an interoperability specification for the UK TV market. Then moving quickly on, just consider the sort of history of interactive services in the UK. So UK TV industry does use the dbook as an interoperability guide for its products. It's this sort of minimum baseline that we all work to. The UK has had interactive software in the form of MHEG since, I think, on air since 1998, which is the first generation carousel-based interactive service delivering digital text, which probably seems a little bit dated by today's standards. The dbook continues to sort of evolve, and in 2007 it added an IP return channel, which allowed for greater interactivity and the potential growth for video delivery for catch-up services. So you can already see the path is moving on. And in 2016, HbbTV was added as an optional feature alongside MHEG, and it's really started to allow visual functional improvements over what we had with MHEG. But frankly speaking, it takes time to populate a market. This was really the beginning of the transition. Clearly, a lot of work was done prior to reach that point to agree to have a HbbTV in the specification. It really is only just at the end of last year, where with the new dbook being agreed, I think version 12.6, and that was very recently published, and that makes MHEG optional and HbbTV the sort of mandatory interactive specification within the dbook. Clarifies the dbook contains a number of mandatory requirements, but compliance with the dbook itself is not required by UK law. Looking at the UK itself, as we said, DTT is very popular, and I think we can say the UK market is mature. It's certainly no green field in which to launch HbbTV. There are millions of MHEG-enabled TVs which consumers and content providers still expect to be able to use and deliver content to. This makes any transition difficult. Dual services are required in many instances. More testing is required. However, I would say transition was, maybe still is, successful. So why was that? I mean, I can provide maybe a Samsung perspective on that. So some reason for a successful transition. As I said, there are millions of TVs in the UK market with MHEG only. That makes it challenging for everyone to migrate smoothly. Perhaps to say the UK is still in a transition period, but we would at least say so far the progress has been good. But as a manufacturer of horizontal devices, we're always concerned about potential problems. Support in the field inevitably would be expensive. Thus, we require confidence in applications and services that we may have to support. In the UK, this has been really achieved through having cross-value chain support. And we can't sort of stress that strongly enough. So, key, as ever, content is king. It's an old adage, but it's still true. We need compelling services which are valued by consumers. It's our view, Samsung's view, that artificial regulation is not as effective as strong consumer demand. To get there, the UK has enjoyed and still does enjoy good cross-value chain coordination. This means through the DTG. Even in these COVID times, broadcasters and manufacturers have sat together, perhaps virtually for the last couple of years, but we've agreed specifications, timelines, how to manage this transition. But another important aspect of this is that the main UK broadcasters all provide technical support and testing for their applications for the CE industry. This essentially leads to fewer market issues, giving the CE industry confidence to support their applications, which is really what we need. And just a very small example, I don't know how easy it is to see on screen, but as a broadcast service with BBC services that have been through Red Button, player and BBC Sounds, and start again. But looking further then at the collaboration, and particularly the DTG debook in a little more detail. So from a Samsung perspective, the debook provides a clear minimum feature set to enable us to make interoperable devices. And I think, pinching the quote from the DTG, they said the requirements for interoperability in the first generation television service to launch in the world was set out by industry in the DTG debook in 1996. This exceptional, these are not my words, but this exceptional cross-industry collaboration continues to reflect innovation in technology and market needs with new annual editions, and we're at, as I said, version 12.6 now. It is uniquely implemented across the entire distribution chain, from playout through to television, set-top box or recorder. And this is exactly the message that we're delivering here. This cross-value chain support is so important. So the debook, it provides us with a minimum interoperability specification. It defines what is broadcast, allowing receivers to receive those broadcasts. This specification, as I said, is designed through industry collaboration. We just heard from James. So Freeview uses the debook as one of their required specifications for Freeview Play. Importantly, any manufacturer can use the debook to implement their own horizontal market receiver. There's no UK regulation or artificial regulation forcing compliance with the debook. That's just something as James uses it, something that Freeview requires to access the Freeview trademark. But in a horizontal market, manufacturers are free to choose exactly what they support. So as a part of my final message, final slide, and just in summary, other countries, I'm sure, are considering migrating to HbbTV. So we would say learning from the UK experience is a good place to start. UK transition to HbbTV, I think, is successful, has been successful, maybe still ongoing. The UK has been a market leader in horizontal market interactivity for more than 20 years, and that includes this transition from MHEG through to HbbTV. A successful interactive TV market creates a win-win situation for broadcasters, manufacturers, and then ultimately for consumers. And so this success is not driven by regulation, but rather broadcasters producing compelling applications and services, cross-industry collaboration, and finally, broadcaster involvement, investment, and technical support of their applications is essential. And that is enabling a successful transition to a new interactive standard, in this case HbbTV in the UK. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you, and back to Jörn, or maybe Sylvain, who's speaking next. Thank you.
Thank you. It's over to me for a very brief message to everyone. But first of all, of course, thank you, Richard, for this most interesting presentation and the insights, and of course the view from a manufacturer's perspective on the developments in the UK, and of course the things that happened, and of course the things that are currently taking place. Let's not forget, there's the Q&A option for you at the end of this session, and the first questions have already arrived. Please do use this opportunity if there's something on your mind that you'd like to ask our panelists today. Just use the chat box as usual for this. We'll collect all your questions and we'll take a look at them in the last 15 minutes of this webinar. Now, we're going to France, where Sylvain is waiting for us from Netgem, a French company very actively involved in the HbbTV environment, and we're of course now looking forward to your presentation. Thank you, and welcome, Sylvain.
Hi everyone. Can you see my screen? That's the usual sentence that we've all had for the last 3 years.
We can see your screen, not the presentation yet, and we can't see you, so we need your webcam picture still.
Can you see the presentation now?
Now there's the presentation.
Okay, sorry.
Need
Because
to
I
go
moved
in
it across.
presentation mode, if we're lucky this time.
Very good. I'll try to play a little video as well. All right. Hello. Yes. Thanks, Jörn, for the introduction.
We need to see your picture still, Sylvain. You're not in webcam mode.
I'm not. Okay.
Can't see your picture. Can you switch on the webcam, please, so we can
Yes.
see you? Yes,
Very
now
good.
it's working. Okay.
Very good. Hello.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everyone. So, thanks, Jörn. Thanks, everyone. So, in fact, yes, although I'm French and I represent Netgem Group as the Chief Commercial Officer, in fact, I've also been leading the development of Netgem in the UK market. And in fact, I'm based in London. So I work very closely with a number of UK players, including James at Digital UK. I'd like to share with you the perspective of what Netgem has been doing in the UK market and partly leveraging HbbTV and Freeview Play to create a leading independent platform, and that essentially is being distributed either directly to consumers or via the growing market of internet service providers who are rolling out fiber, full fiber as it's called in this country. So I'll share with you what Netgem is, as a reminder, what we've done in this UK market, and actually how we have embraced HbbTV and how we see the evolution in the market. So quick background on Netgem. First, I was one of the pioneers in IPTV, in the world of TV media converging with the internet, so created 25 years ago, deployed a bit more than 10 million devices across the world, with a bit more than 3 million active today across 15 markets. And it continues essentially to innovate with customer experience at the heart. Has always been known, and that's been the focus of our R&D team. We invest significant amount of R&D every year to bring the best of the TV experience from the very early days of 2000, 2010, 2020, 21, 22, and onwards. In fact, if we zoom on the UK market, Netgem actually was involved very early on in the UK market in the early 2000s, so more than 20 years ago, with first development of the first generation of hybrid TV, including the initial development with On Digital that became Active Digital, and offering the first version of what was called the BT iPlayer box, in fact. Then more recently, after a few years running in partnership with a company called Fetch TV, in fact, a big investment was made in 2014 to bring the world of traditional DTT evolving towards more on-demand services with the OTT, and bringing the first, if you want, quite sophisticated multi-screen platform with eTV in 2014 that evolved over time. And since 2018 in the UK, we have embraced Digital UK's specification to actually bring an HbbTV compliant set of devices, including very latest 4K device that is at the heart of the service that is delivering, if you want, a unified experience between the broadcaster-based content, linear and non-linear, as well as the best of the on-demand world from the traditional, also typical and growing streaming services. What we can see in the UK market is types of trend is not dissimilar to what is happening around the world, but it's probably slightly more marked by essentially the kind of duality of what we see. So on the one hand, there is clearly the rise of the American online streaming platforms, so you know them all, and of course they're taking more and more share, particularly with the younger segments of the audience. However, there is still a very big importance of the broadcasters in the UK, and they have a very strong tie with consumers. It's not just the younger segments, sorry, the older segments who actually watch BBC ITV, Channel 4, 5, and the rest of the Freeview portfolio, but also the younger generation, indeed, have linked to pretty popular shows such as the one we can see here on the right, which is Love Island on ITV. So it's not as basic as the young generation is shifting toward only streaming services from Netflix, Amazon, YouTube. and then the old people who watch the BBC and others. It's actually much more subtle. Having said that, there is a trend that both essentially are moving towards much more on-demand services and streaming. And there is also more and more supply of content coming from both, as we heard from James, the world of Freeview Play, as well as the world of streaming services, and it becomes rather busy, crowded, and you have to say, arguably complicated for users to navigate and to find the relevant content for them. That's really the role that we want to play in this market, is to bring, if you want, what used to be the benefit of a pay TV package, typically people who are paying quite a high premium, subscribers of Sky, Virgin, and others, typically, pay TV platform, will have a range of choice, a massive amount of choice, but typically will pay a premium for that. Now, what we can see increasingly, and what we've heard, is that obviously there's an increasing range of on-demand content available for free, as well as, if you want, pick and mix options, as in you can have access to 1 month of Now TV or Netflix if you want, or actually, in fact, you subscribe to some of the services, but on a non-contract basis. So it still gives flexibility, which indeed essentially brings much more content to more customers. When in the past, 15 years ago, you just had to be on Sky or Virgin if you wanted more than if you want free-to-air channels. Today, you can have a range of content available via different platforms, via different devices, and you have the flexibility. However, what we believe is important is that with choice, also, we need to keep the concept of relevance, because you can get lost with that huge amount of content, and also simplicity of the experience, the discovery, and usage. So I'm going to go quickly through a number of things that we've done in the UK market in order to hit that sweet spot, which is, we believe, are the core values that are increasingly important for consumers around choice, simplicity, relevance. All of this brought together with value. So we brought essentially a platform that includes a metadata aggregation in order to bring together the best of the broadcaster content with the on-demand services. We were the first one to launch an Amazon Prime Video device in 2017, including more and more content. And over time, we actually evolved our portfolio to be enhanced and added to the Freeview Play content available via the various devices that we've launched throughout the last few years, being a soundbox, being a 4K streamer, and so on and so on. In the end, we believe now that we're in a very strong position to offer what we think is at the sweet spot of a base value proposition for end users. So typically what you would see today is when you go to the mainstream pay TV providers that typically tend to bundle their broadband with TV in UK, Sky, Virgin, BT, you pay a very minimum with Sky and Virgin of £25 in addition to the broadband package. BT would start slightly more aggressive, offer less content, and we position ourselves by embracing, if you want, the rich content from Digital UK's Freeview Play environment, together with additional channels, IP channels, OTT, and additional on-demand services. Essentially, we reach, if you want, an amount of channels which is similar to a Sky, around 200 channels, addressing the same genre, obviously, of mainstream media, which, as you obviously know, will cover sports to kids content via factuals, entertainment, movies, and others, yet being much more affordable. There are various different things that we've done as part of that in order to get there. We've embraced the latest fast technology, which is essentially the principle of having ad-funded streaming channels as added to also on-demand services, and typically we'll be looking more around £10 a month is what you pay for the service, between 10 and 15, so much more competitive, and yet bringing more flexibility to opt in and out of different services such as your Netflix, your Amazon, and others. What do we do really with all that technology together, and what is core to us is really, as I mentioned, those principles of keeping simplicity, relevance, and associated with choices. We make sure that all the content is in one place. So there's unification, and it's there to be accessed across the board in one simple UI. The second thing is we make sure that this discovery is actually very simple and rapid. There was a survey done last year whereby it is known that the average consumer spends actually around 12 minutes per day to actually find the content they want to watch on the TV. It's not a huge number, but it's still scary, given that the average time spent on TV per day is around 4 hours, according to Ofcom. But it's still too long, essentially. So we make sure that our discovery is simplified. There is an element of recommendation. And we also add the element of personalization. So making sure that you have more and more relevant content across the spectrum of free-to-air broadcast content, as well as on-demand streaming services all together. So let's say you like shows about cars, you would equally find, if you want, a Grand Tour from Amazon, as well as a Top Gear from the BBC, or broadcast by HbbTV, and you would find it in the same genre, in the same category. So those three principles are actually essentially always there in our UI. So about bringing the free-to-air first, enhancing with IP channels, so adding more. So we also have additional, for example, car channels, car racing, and topping up with obviously the very latest. Typically, in terms of on-demand, would be even UHD 4K. With embracing HbbTV apps, so the apps that James mentioned, but a few others which are added to the portfolio. And typically, we always make sure that we take the very latest technology. Typically, the audio EPG that James mentioned is obviously part of the UI. The restart aspect, which is very important, it gives flexibility to restart on the BBC channel and go back to the beginning via direct access to the stream, is also supported via this HbbTV trigger. And we make sure that all of that is embedded within our UI in a very simple way. So you can use the green button, which you can actually see on the top right on the BBC channel, but we also add a little restart button in our UI, so you can click restart and do it. So always, we want to make sure that we keep things simple. So we have a unified search as well that cuts across all the different sources, and we have overlaid on top a very powerful Alexa skill that you can also use, and you can command the search, or you can actually use shortcut to go to the UI. So open iPlayer if you want, or you can actually say watch EastEnders, which will actually play the very latest episode of EastEnders, for example. And finally, My TV is about a section where we try to actually gather some intelligence and present what is relevant, particularly either selected by the user in the form of a watch list. So I want to select this show, and it's going to appear in my watch list, or via learning that essentially we can present some recommendation or the most popular that we get from different sources and metadata sources. So all in the end, what we've done is we built a very comprehensive environment that has a combination of obviously leveraging what Freeview Play and the HbbTV app provide, as well as having our own, if you want, infrastructure that can deliver the best unified experience across free-to-air content and streaming services in the UK. How is it distributed today? Alongside, if you want, the main large broadband providers that typically would bundle their pay TV services, Sky TV, Virgin TV, BT with BTTV. In fact, we are particularly working alongside our direct distribution, so you can actually subscribe to the service and you get the benefit of receiving our 4K device, as well as, if you want, the enhanced service around it, which you pay via this subscription around £15 a month. Or you can subscribe, which usually is more around £10, via an ISP package. For example, in the UK, we have 15 alternative fiber broadband providers that are digging the streets and are putting full fiber 1 gig connectivity into the homes. For example, this one, which is Community Fiber in London, they would actually bundle their 1 gig package with our TV service, and people pay a premium of £10, which actually is very, very competitive compared to what you would get from a BT or Sky or Virgin, and typically for a better broadband and a better TV, in fact. We've also signed a deal recently with TalkTalk, who actually are now starting to roll out our service and in partnership, so they can actually benefit from the fact that we are running the whole service, and they can offer it to their broadband customers. Just a number of the announcements that we made, and that I think at the end of the day, what we try to do is summarized here, which is getting into this space, the middle space, if you remember the first chart, which we call the pay TV light. So essentially the space of customers who actually are happy to get more than free-to-air and want more options than free-to-air, but they still want to have Freeview Play at the heart. Or if you want, customers who would be quite happy to pay less, in fact, for having more flexibility. So instead of paying 60, 65 pounds to Sky, maybe moving to 10 or 15 and get the option to add Netflix on top, or as 56% of the population already have Amazon Prime, the number was released today. In fact, they will also get Amazon Prime Video content. That's more than 15 million households, in fact. And we bring it all together in one place. We also add additional channels, and we make sure that the experience is always the best, simple discovery, personalization, and the rest. Where are we going from there? So we will continue to work with, obviously, HbbTV app providers, but more importantly with the Digital UK to embrace the future developments. We have our distribution on the one hand, which is, as I said, with fiber, broadband, altnet, and TalkTalk. And we will want to increasingly bring more features, obviously more IP-based features, as part of the HbbTV development. And essentially, as much as possible, bring together with Digital UK and UK broadcasters some more advanced functionality, typically more in the multi-screen area, which we have rolled out in other markets such as France, and we would obviously love to see that more prominent in the UK market as well, as part of the development together with Freeview. That is the end of my presentation. Happy to take a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvain, for these details on your company and their Netgem TV service in the UK. I've collected a couple of questions that you can see here on the screen. And if you still would like to submit a question, there is still time to do so through the chat box, and I'll add it to the list. The first one goes to James. The viewer wants to know, does Freeview Play offer regional services? What services or apps are shown on BBC when BBC Scotland broadcasts its regional programs to the TVs, for example?
So yes, it's really important that we do operate regional services in the UK, and indeed quite a lot of work has been done to evolve the Freeview Play specification so that we can do various things, including supporting things like IP versions of services when they're outside of areas where you might be able to receive those services from broadcast, or that you receive the correct interactive services. I won't go into the details of what all of those are, but it's absolutely supported, and it's really important that it's supported by us and by the content providers, because we have different channel lineups in different parts of the country.
Okay. Now the next one goes to Richard. Should we understand that MEC is still active in the UK?
That's a very good question, and it really depends how you want to unpack that. So it's essentially the answer is yes. So then we're not waffling around, but you've got to look at what services are provided, what products are provided. So we've talked about that the UK is on a transition from MHEG to HbbTV. So there's a trajectory. I said UK is not a green field. There are millions of TVs out there that support only MHEG, and there are services that are still broadcast, and I think will continue because for some while, because content providers, broadcasters recognise that these millions of TVs are out there. There's a trajectory one way for TVs and trajectory the other way. So at the moment, yes, it's still active. I think things are we're in the transition. We have, as an industry, we have done I think what we can to enable that transition to effectively to give better graphics, better video, better features, functionality for consumers. It doesn't happen overnight if you do it smoothly.
Okay, thank you. The next one goes to you, Richard, as well. Do Samsung TVs support debug HbbTV 203 in the UK?
Yeah, also a good question. So as I think I said in my presentation, DBOK only mandated HbbTV and particularly 203 at the end of last year. So from a DBOK requirements perspective, then it's only necessary, I think, technically to support it from middle of next year. I'm sure we'll probably beat that, but we're supporting the previous version of HbbTV in the meantime for the last couple of years.
Okay, I think I'll stay with you, Richard, for a moment. There's a new question that has just arrived.
My lucky day.
Yeah, do broadcasters still operate MHeg versions on their players?
Well, I did check before we had this webinar, and from what I can see is yes, but obviously you need to have a device that has MHeg in it as well. So there are lots of new products coming out that are HbbTV only, and they will not see MHeg. Yeah, James, go on.
I think I'd add to that, actually. I don't think there are major broadcasters that are operating MHeg versions of their players. They've almost all moved to HTML5 and HbbTV. For the major broadcasters,
I'd agree.
Small channels which have only an MHeg offering and haven't yet got an HbbTV equivalent of it, but they're quite small.
That's a fair comment. I wouldn't disagree with that, but in black and white answer to the question is yes, but yeah, you have to look around.
Do new Samsung TVs still support MHeg? The new ones, new models?
No, they're HbbTV only.
Okay. Good. Let's move on to Sylvain. The question for you is, do I get Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, BritBox included in the £10 Netgem TV subscription?
I think the person who asked the question probably knows the answer, which is there is no way you can actually do that. All the titles, the main titles, are obviously presented to you, so they're part of search recommendation. They're actually there, and of course, it's to each customer to decide whether they want to actually have an active subscription. Of course, for the partners, we work with them to have special offers. So we typically have 3 months free or half price for 6 months, which help obviously with the take-up of the services. But as I said, the reality is that people who have Netflix probably already have Netflix anyway, so they will simply activate it. More than half of the population have Amazon Prime. As I said, the number was released today. That's quite staggering. And so you already have access to that, and you have obviously that's coming on top of the 40 or 50,000 hours of free-to-air from the broadcasters. In fact, there's a huge amount. The issue is more, what you can actually watch and find really the relevant content for yourself.
Okay, next one to you as well. Sylvain, do you use commercial block replacement technologies, DAI, in your channel streams?
So we don't touch the broadcasters, the main broadcaster stream with DAI. We don't do that. However, for the fast channels, yes, of course. So the principle of fast is that we have ad slots and there is ad insertion. And we work with a couple of partners to actually offer those ad inserted in the slots for the IP-only channels.
And last one for you, at least for now, Sylvain, which parts of Netgem TV do use the HbbTV specification?
Well, essentially a whole stack which is implemented on the devices. Of course, on the mobile apps and so on, it's not relevant. But yes, it's all HbbTV2 something compliant. And then as much as possible, I mean, we've always had something I forgot to say. In fact, we've always been an HTML centric company, so this is quite natural for us to have embraced HbbTV and HTML5 in there. In fact, very early days, 20 years ago, we were the very first ones, which was very odd to use HTML2 at that time. So we've actually been always focused on open standard. HbbTV has been natural for us.
Okay, one for James, I think. How is HbbTV advertising status in the UK?
Some elements of HbbTV advert delivery and advert management are being used within on-demand services, but not perhaps in the way that people might imagine for live linear services. So you have got things like multiple object video delivery being used in the on-demand streams, and you've got targeted advertising in the on-demand streams where the consumer's opted into that. But you haven't got that in the broadcast services at this moment in time. So you haven't got the sort of equivalent of HbbTV TA functionality live anywhere in the UK, or indeed, as to the best of my knowledge, any device is supporting it yet.
Yeah, this is still a very new feature.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to Jörn just to say that, I mean, James is quite right. It's an optional part of the HbbTV spec. It's not part of the UK spec. DTG is looking at it, but ultimately it requires industry engagement, as per my slides. So we will see.
Working on it. So one to James, the last one. Does Freeview or any of its shareholders support content discovery, for example, with dedicated red button push notifications?
I think I know what dedicated red button push notifications mean. The BBC certainly uses red button triggers over its broadcast channels to encourage people to interact with its services and discover a wider range of content. The BBC already does that. They're not one of our shareholders, but STV also does that. And we are on the point of launching a service to Freeview Play devices, which will make that much more widespread across many more broadcast services, which make use of not necessarily red button notifications, but colour button notifications to discover more content.
Thank you very much. Now a couple of formal things. At the end, as usual, there will be a YouTube recording of this live webinar available for you shortly on the HbbTV Association's YouTube site. We will also make the presentations available for download on the HbbTV website for you later today as PDF files. And of course, you'll all receive an email with the links to these files. Let's take a look at the next webinar in February. We will focus on HbbTV-based programmatic advertising solutions and GDPR compliance. I've already heard that this is very interesting to the community. The date and time and speakers will be announced and confirmed shortly, and you'll all be invited again to join this session, which is probably going to take place around the 3rd week of February. As usual, you are of course invited to submit your suggestions for further webinars and topics you're interested in. Just email the HbbTV Association under webinar@hbbtv.org. HbbTV is also available on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so please make sure you regularly check these sites to be up to date on all the developments. Thank you very much for today, and thank you to our speakers, and we'll see you again next time. Take care and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, bye-bye.